Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Sorry, I have no face camera again today. That is something that is intermittently working. And so you'll just have to put up with my hands and probably better for you anyway, looking at the cards with the full screen. So, Wild Unknown Tarot, welcome back to this study. Today I'm going to look at the suit of Pentacles, the suit of coins, all of the minor arcana and the associated majors, kind of working in a similar pattern to I have the past few Saturdays, and then today at the end I will do a reading for you. And so, kind of auspicious, I just finished recording my decan walk for this particular decan. This is being recorded on the 11th day, excuse me, of April 2026. We have moved into the third decan a couple of days ago of Aries, and this beautiful energy of the King of Discs. This card is from Journey of the Sacred Bee by Kelly Burton. And so in a way, it feels highly significant that this is the order that I have done. And today I get to talk about the suit of coins. And I don't know who emphasized this, but one of the things that I remember well is that always remember that there is a star in the pentacle. That sometimes we can get overwhelmed with the mundane energy of the pentacles. They can be dense and overwhelming. And yet in the tarot, we have this beautiful symbol. And so remember that. Remember the star is there. It's always there. And welcome to those of you that are watching live, Clevis, Mary Beth, Donna, and those of you that are watching without chatting. A warm welcome to all of you. If you're in the replay, of course, please leave comments, questions, and let me know what you would like me to expand on further in terms of the Wild Unknown Tarot. These are the cards of Capricorn, and I thought I would approach this trying to weave together as many cards as possible at the same time. And Capricorn is the the devil is the card that represents Capricorn. Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn in the tarot is represented by the World card. And we're looking at 2, 3, and 4 of Pentacles. Of all the Pentacles cards, I really love, in general, in all decks, hi Dee, welcome to you, the 2 of Pentacles. There's just something about the way this is drawn in so many decks. I find it inspiring. I love all cards of change, including the Tower. And this one is so well done. We see the balance of the wings as far as a 2 goes, and this energy of transformation. And there's a lot of these rainbow colored antenna, all kinds of different things, wands in this deck that to me symbolize interconnectedness, the interconnectedness of all energy. And so 2 of Wands is a card decanically that comes in at the winter solstice. It represents the winter equinox, and it represents spring equinox, fall equinox, winter solstice. Okay, so winter solstice. So this is, the changing of, the handing off of if we're looking at it through the sabbats, the holly king to the holly oak, and this is where the changing of the light happens. So not equinox, not a time of balance, but certainly a time of changing light and an awareness of the changing of light. So this card sometimes is referred to as the little change card. And I find this really interesting that the little change card, which you'll often see the lemniscate, and I'm thinking of different Marseille decks, how this is depicted usually in this shape rather than across. And it's this decan is Jupiter. So we've got the big change and the little change here together as the Two of Pentacles in the darkness of winter. And so I was just sitting here thinking about the darkness of winter and Capricorn. And I know for those of you that are in the southern hemisphere, this just doesn't make sense. And I just want to honor that the tarot is a northern hemisphere centric, Eurocentric, for the most part, Western culture system. And there are other decks that do a better job at including other cultures and places in the world. But this is rather than looking at this from an unjust or an angry point of view, I think we can look at this just as this is the foundation of the tarot. And if you want to work with this, then I don't want to say that it belongs to a certain place in the world, but it's just the base from which we work. And I've reconciled the sort of injustice in that way, in that it feels sort of not inclusive in so many regards. Taking humans out of it and using nature and animals certainly does help. And for some readers, of course, that also becomes equally frustrating, because here you can see that we have a butterfly and a mountain as we're working here, a goat, which technically is a sea goat in terms of Capricorn. And so interesting that we have the fire at the feet here, and that's what I want to address next. So why the fire at the feet? Well, lots of possible interpretations, and I'm sure you have some of your own. But one of the things to be aware of is that 2, 3, 4 Pentacles. This is a very masculine corner of the wheel. This is ruled by Jupiter, Mars, Sun. So if you were here last week, we were looking at all of the fire cards. And all of these are fiery cards. Fire underneath us. Why? Perhaps it helps us to get us out of our stagnancy, our lethargy in winter. So that's one thing that I was thinking of. And I know that with this deck, I am seeking to bring in as many yogic interpretations as possible, because I know that is a lens that, or a paradigm that Kim Kranz moves through, functions through. And so I want to address that as well too. And I think that she knows a thing or two about the tarot, though she doesn't write much about some of these associations that I'm talking about here today. So how can we look at Capricorn? Well, first of all, let's go back and talk about what we've got represented here. We've got a lot of wheels and pulleys. Wheels and pulleys. This is the beginning of the development of the Pentacles. It's a time and a place where we start to develop in the material world. With the tarot, this is, generally speaking, the fourth suit, right? It's the suit of integration. We've been through Wands, Cups, and Swords, whatever order you're working with that in. Generally speaking, this is the suit where everything becomes integrated. And so here we're starting to see some early manifestation, but there's a lot of work that is required. And the work that is required requires this heat. And as Clevis says, the heat is needed to withstand winter. And this heat is also needed to fuel the energy that is required for this development, for this work. And I think the devil here also is a great instigator of, being the devil's advocate, asking the hard questions for us, in order for us to do and be the best version and create the best version of the work that we want to create. And with this sign being ruled by Saturn, there's all of these questions of boundaries and limitations. How far are we willing to go? How far are we willing to push this? Are we willing to get out of our comfort zone? And I think that plays into all of these cards. We're kind of tested with our zones of regulation, right? Zones of comfort. And yeah, we can talk about this in terms of lots of other things, but when we're looking at the whole picture, it really makes sense that we have this fire underfoot here. And the world as a Ouroboros. The Ouroboros as one of the symbols of continuity of life. The tail, the head eating the tail, and so forth, and all the other associations that go with the Ouroboros. What does it do? It encourages, it amplifies, it mirrors what is going on here in the 2 and the wheels and pulleys that you see in the 4. What I'm picking up on in this central decan as far as yogic interpretations go is how important the balance is, that we need to be really careful of getting carried away with our initial excitement, that we pause and we check and we consult. And you might want to think of some other verbs that come to mind when you think of more pictorially illustrated 3s of Pentacles. We consult in others. We don't just go ahead all, from the ego without looking at a bigger picture. In the 3 of Pentacles, there might be quite a mountain to climb. It might be a lot to bite off. Remember, we're early in the journey, right? We haven't really started. We haven't really chosen a path. We don't know which direction we're going. We don't know what the big picture is going to look like. We don't have a clear image of the big picture because we're so early in the journey. And if I think about the 3 of Pentacles here, notice that. So here we have the mountain, the blade or the phallus, and then we have the cup, right? So we have the masculine and the feminine. Well, we have that here too, the masculine and the feminine. So it's kind of brilliant the way this card is illustrated. We also in the sky have this union of light and dark that is blending overhead. And we have this teamwork, so to speak, the red and the yellow and the blue. These colors, they're primary colors, and I think it's really symbolic of how important it is to build a strong foundation. The other thing here too is that there are 5 points on the Pentacles. Well, we can look at it in this card as well. And 5 times 3 is 15, 15. So this connection, I think, it's significant. And I find it fascinating that Kim Krans was able to bring in that energy. Now, if I look at what is going on here in terms of yoga, in terms of yogic medicine, and in terms of the devil and where we are with that, well, this is very deep and dark. So when we're talking about, first, second, and third chakras. There is a lot of challenging, shadowy, difficult to understand habits, patterns, and tendencies that we repeat again and again. And thanks to the fire here, this creates the tapas, the energy that we need to sort of, play in the mud puddle, so to speak, to begin to stir up a lot of that uncomfortable stuff. And I was talking about boundaries and what are your limitations. And I think this group of cards really does a great job in asking those questions. We want to make a difference in the world. We want to be willing to. So this is initiating energy. We want to start something new and something fresh. Maybe get outside of our comfort zone to transform and to build something. We are willing to change the status quo. But we know in order to do that, we can't do that alone. The three implies others and togetherness and different perspectives. And then we have this idea of harmony. And remember that 15 of course does reduce to 6, which makes a lot of sense, right? In bringing in the archetype of the lovers here as well too, with the blade and the chalice, the feminine and the masculine. And so through deeper exploration, building deeper connections, we can also work with, and I think this decan is key to understanding, this particular card is key to understanding this group of cards. We need to be willing to look into the darkness, look into our own darkness. And what is the best way to do that? Looking at relationship, looking at hierarchy, looking at how we see ourselves, how we work with others, what kind of stuff gets stirred up when we are on top, on the bottom, what kind of stuff gets stirred up when our money gets turned down. Right? Great comments here. Thank you. And this balance is super important because if these gears are not lubricated, if they are not adjusted and tightened or loosened or replaced as needed, then they don't work. And so good care needs to be taken here. Now, this is a lot of fiery energy. I think this card tells us that everything is working. The 4s are the 4th Sephira, this place of manifest. Something is definitely manifest here. We have created something. The 4s are something upon which we can most definitely build. And yet, I think as we move, into the cards of Taurus, we learn that perhaps we didn't heed some of the lessons of the 3. Or maybe we became bored. We became bored with the fact that we did it it was all working well. And so maybe we became, what's that word? We not lackadaisical, but we forgot to tend to the details. And so one of these pulleys broke. Gears may become noisy and seize. And what I see here is that we forgot to attend to the feminine. We forgot to attend to the feminine because we were so hyped up on all this masculine power. And it feels like that, the skewing of the masculine. It reminds me of those power-hungry leaders in our workplaces and communities that, we all do it. Sometimes we just get carried away, we get excited, and we forget to attend to the feminine. And so she begins to die. She begins to die. And this is, I don't know how you see this card. This is Mercury, Decan, 5 of Pentacles, which I think it's really difficult here. If we look at it that way, we're completely on the left side of the tree of life, 5 being Mars, Geburah, and all 5s. I feel like when we go from here to here, we blew a tire. We blew a tire. We put too much air in the tire. We put too much pressure. Do we put too much pressure on ourselves? I wonder. I feel like we put too much pressure on ourselves. And depending on the deck that you're working with, I want you to read that deck because there are so many great lessons in this card. And I think the general lesson is that there was some complacency here. Something turned us away. We weren't able to tend to this. Now, remember, decanically speaking, we're not coming from the 4 of Pentacles. We're coming from the 4 of Wands. It was very beautiful in the 4 of Wands. We looked at that card last week. It was very beautiful. The structure was bright and shiny. Venus and Mars were in a beautiful dance. Venus was beautifying the strength and the structure of Mars. But yeah, we got complacent. We got bored. And oh dear, well, something happened. But the lesson in the tarot, you all read the tarot, you know that the 5s are important reflections. And sometimes they can feel like the eye of the needle. Very challenging to get through. And I love that story of Jerusalem. Yes, that's the one, I think. So going into the holy city, the entrances to Jerusalem, you basically had to unload all the cargo off your camel because the passage in was so narrow. So you had to take all the cargo off your camel, lead your camel through, and then have your servants bring the packages through, or you had to bring all of your gear through separately and then reload your animal on the other side. And this idea of eye of the needle, I think in that particular story, it's a reminder that there's a lot of unpacking to do here and paring things down. Simplicity is required. And if I look at this one as, you've heard me say this, the black blouse, this is the heart space, this is the necklace. And it just makes me think of how important it is to come back to the heart. And with this being the Hierophant and Taurus ruled by Venus, we know that the heart and tenderness and all of that is so very important. Now, this is a really, this could be a really challenging combination of cards. In theory, Mercury should balance Venus, but in this case, it's just really uncomfortable. I feel like what do I feel like? I feel like, so if I think about the heart chakra, and this makes me think of overthinking and trying to bring logic and practical energy into the heart rather than moving from the heart. Venus wants to adorn. Venus wants to see the beauty. But this energy underneath, it's too harsh. It's not allowing us to feel and to be and to live. Can you imagine the chaos at the Needles and Old Jerusalem? Merchants arguing, camels braying. Luckily, in modern times, we've embraced the concept of service entrances and loading docks. That's wonderful, Mary Beth. Yeah. No, I cannot imagine. But, I wonder if you've ever been to places where you've had this feeling. I'm thinking of rush hour subway in Tokyo. I'm thinking of maybe, I've never actually been to an old days Black Friday sale. We certainly have situations where this kind of energy may have been present. So I think about maybe going to concerts. Ooh, I know one. I remember post 9/11 taking my kids to Disneyland. And I had 3 little kids. And, as a mom with 3 little kids, you have to carry a lot of gear. Well, post 9/11 Disneyland, my God, they went through everything. And, I had a husband in tow as well, thank goodness, because there was no compassion for the stuff. They went through it all and asked lots of hard questions. It did feel a bit like that. So in a way, I wished I hadn't had carried so much stuff. Took away the joy of the transition. And so that, one of the things I try to do in the tarot is find the weaving. And as soon as I said the word joy, I thought about going from here to here, going from devil to Hierophant. I want to go back and just respond to Dee, but I'm going to come back to this. I think all this fire is just a natural energy that needs to be here so the earth doesn't become too stagnant. And I think it has to do as well with just the natural order of change, the natural order of things. And with Saturn being here and the World card being here, we absolutely need an energy that is going to help to move the earth. But this word joy, I want to come back to that. It feels like we've lost the joy of the joy of the process. The joy of the process, enjoying what we do. We've got into the busyness of doing it rather than the joy of doing something. And one of the rights of the sacral chakra is to feel, it's to live in joy. We certainly associate feelings with Pentacles. And you might wonder where the devil is in terms of, well, the devil is all about the sacral chakra in so many layers, so many different levels. But certainly in terms of relationship, in terms of feeling and learning to feel and allowing ourselves to feel. And then the limits come in when we again take things too far. And so I feel that something may have been denied. And so we step into this 5 to explore that denial or that self-imposed restriction, or taking brahmacharya too far. Brahmacharya is one of the tenets of yoga where we restrict certain things. We limit ourselves from certain things so that we can come back to the path of transformation. And brahmacharya is not just about chastity. It's about restricting things so that we can learn to not be drawn to the excesses. So when we look at 5, 6, and 7 of Pentacles, how do we, this is a really challenging series of cards in what should be a place of beauty and Eden, and I think of the luxuriousness of quite an abundant garden. And Taurus, of course, is early in the spring. The garden is quite abundant, but the earth is rich. There's something really beautiful about May and early spring, and we get all these very hard lessons here. So if I look at the crow, corvid of some sort here, raven maybe, again, lots of different mythology. If we look at it magically, if we look at the idea of the key and the thunderbolt, and how the thunderbolt is going to shift the energy of the key. Could one of the regulars reply to Netav, please? Thank you. When I look at the combination of the thunderbolt and the key, it again reminds me about being okay with not receiving the expected answer. Being okay with not receiving the expected answer. And so I think there is a message, there is a wisdom, there is a dissemination of information that comes through in this particular card. However, we need to be open to an unexpected opening. And when I see the key here, this reminds me of the opening, the passageway, right, into Jerusalem. The door isn't always what we expect it to be, or what is on the other side of the door isn't what we always expect will be on the other side of the door. what is important is that we open the door. Does that make sense, right? The opening of the door is more important than what's on the other side of the door. And if we're willing to step into the energy of the Five of Pentacles, it's about being in the process, not being attached to the outcome. And I think there's something here about healing the heart, that all the reason for the Five of Pentacles is about healing the heart. Finding some healing for our own Venus. And as you know, that could be a financial healing for sure. It could be something to do with love, loss, any number of issues. But you can see that this sequence of cards, it looks a little brighter. It looks a lot brighter. And we move from a decan that is ruled by Mercury to a decan that is ruled by the moon. It always goes in the same order, right? So if we have been at Magician, which is Hod, then the next decan is always the moon. And then the next decan is Saturn. And then we go to Jupiter. So here, the High Priestess softens, comforts, and there's a different kind of wisdom in the High Priestess than there is in the Magician. There's certainly wisdom in both of these. And you know how sometimes we compare and contrast the Magician and the High Priestess? And we look at them in terms of mystery, masculine mystery, feminine mystery. And so if we have the patience and the perseverance to explore the challenges of the five, I think there's a gift of the divinity of the High Priestess that takes us to this beauty and fruition in the six. If we're willing to let go, then we receive. We need to be willing to release in order to know the fullness of the six. And this is also a really decanically super interesting. And this, you could also talk about this in terms of Sushumna Nadi, the central channel in yoga. This particular place here, it feels like a, okay, so there are moments in every single day where the channels of energy harmonize and we have an opening in the central channel. Everybody experiences this multiple times a day. Whether we are aware of it or not is another thing. But it's when we feel those aha moments, those maybe a second of clarity. And that's what I feel here, because we have High Priestess ruled decan, 6, which leads us straight up the central channel through the heart to the path of the High Priestess. So, okay. I know some of you are following me, but let's get the picture here. So here's the 9, right? So the ninth Sephira is the moon. And 6 is the sun. The 6th Sephira is the sun. And so there's this connection that's going on here of moon and sun. And then if we feel that, if we allow that, so then we have here the path of the High Priestess. So there's something about this place in Taurus that is very hopeful and very peaceful and beautiful. It's like we have allowed the message, we've really sat with the message of the Hierophant, and we've been able to digest it and receive it in just the right way. And so what does this all have to do with Pentacles? Well, it has to do with our plodding through life. It has to do with our willingness to step through life, to take things one step at a time. And from the moon, we go down to Malkuth, to Saturn, and it gets super dense, really dense, very hard to move, low frequency, very low frequency. And so it's important to retain a big picture, to not want to move too quickly, because we will trip, we will fall. And if you notice, all of these pentacles are in different positions. It's like I don't know if they're rolling upwards or they're rolling downwards, but they're all in motion. They're not static. And this particular number, 7, is 7th Sephirah. It's Venus. 7s are Venus. So we have this connection here of Venus and Saturn. 2 and Saturn in, when we're talking about tarot stuff, Saturn is both a connection to Malkuth, because the world path leads down to Malkuth. And the world card in the tarot represents both the Earth and Saturn. Not a part of this particular group of cards, but part of the even bigger picture. However, Saturn is also Binah, which is Queen's divine mask, divine feminine. So there's a tremendous amount of femininity here. And it's like with these cards, it was all about the phallus. It was all about the fire. And with these cards, it's about learning the lessons through regaining a connection to our femininity, to our Venus, to our softness, to our earthiness, to our groundedness, to learning to navigate the journey of the earth. Now, what about the court cards? What about the court cards? What about the ace? Well, this is the home of the ace. I mentioned, if we're working with Golden Dawn energy, that daughters and aces are the strongest in the fixed signs. That doesn't mean that their energy isn't present at other times and with other cards, but their potential is here. And so when I think about that in terms of all that's going on here, this becomes really important, that the lessons and the energy of Taurus season and the Hierophant and the 5, 6, and 7 in Pentacles have a potential for great learning, and don't all cards, but I want to remember that there's I feel so much hopefulness with the Daughter of Pentacles and gentleness. And when I feel the pain of the 5, 6, and 7 of Pentacles, I need to remember there's something here that I've missed. I've missed something. right? I need to step out of my, I think there's a lot of ego over here. And the reminder here is to step out of that and to listen more and pay attention more and soften, get the chip off the shoulder, so to speak. And of course, this is not all Daughter of Pentacles, and it's not all Father of Pentacles either. Taurus we think of as Father of Pentacles. And so there's maybe, maybe you could also bring in father-daughter issues, father-daughter patterns, harmonies that are a part of all of this. Sorry, you can't see all of that, right? So all of that might be part of a dynamic here. Donna, what are you talking about? I don't know if you're talking to me or not. And so one of the ways that when I'm reading the tarot is that I bring in this energy. Like I whatever card I'm reading, I think about its associated court card. And if there is a lesson or a medicine or something that I need to acknowledge. Now, if I'm talking about the Seven of Pentacles, there is a shifting of the guard. And remember that there's always a shifting of the energy. And when we go from a fixed sign, and next is Gemini, so we go from a fixed sign, we're always going from a father to a son. And even if you're working with, we're talking about this deck, but no matter what system you're working with, you could be going from a son to a father. But there's also this relationship. So the more you know about the weaving, the connection of the court cards to the cards to the other cards in the tarot, it gives you more to talk about, more layers to talk about. And Dee's comment is kind of sitting with me, and I'm thinking about, she asked about the fire. Where's all this fire coming from? Well, for two of the decans anyway, we have the Mother of Pentacles for Capricorn. And this is a powerful, I think, balancing energy. A powerful balancing energy to all of the masculine energy that is here. I think it also helps to explain the sort of insatiable tirelessness of Queens of Pentacles, how they just keep on going. I mean, eventually they do crash like everyone else. And it's also a reminder of how important the nurturing is. So the other set of cards, if we look at the Hermit. So the Hermit is the late summer, early fall. Beautifully depicted here, thinking about turning in, regrouping, Summer's been a pretty dynamic time to slow down. Perhaps, it's a time to reflect on all that's happened. And you can also look at the 8, 9, and 10 of Pentacles as an integration of everything that has happened in the other Pentacle cards. This is the accumulation of the knowledge of the 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 of Pentacles. This is, I gotta say, one of my favorite cards in so many tarot decks. It really is. And I feel that when we get to this place, we're so much more comfortable with ourselves. We don't care that we're a spider and we freak out people. We just do our work. This is Charlotte. This is E.B. White's Charlotte. She knows what her destiny is. She knows what her path is. And she's so patient and caring and just cleverly intelligent. And guide. I feel so that this is such a card of guidance. I often just feel that when we get here and this card shows up, it's like we've given ourselves permission to do whatever we want to do, regardless of what others think. We don't care what people think anymore, because we know who we are. And remember that we've been through all of this earthly, worldly stuff. Now, as we go to 8, 9, and 10, the energy begins to speed up. This is the mutable decan. Hermit is ruled by a magician. Sorry, I got a lot of here. Here it is. Mercury. So you can think about this. So you know how fast Mercury is, right? So we're starting to move up here. Ooh, I love that description. That's beautiful. Yeah. What else can I say here? And I think in terms of this particular card, the hopefulness comes from the ruler of the decan, which is the sun, and kind of the life force energy of the sun reminds us who we are, right? It's our center. And by the time we get to this place, we develop a sense of harmony and confidence. We no longer question. This of course is all in the highest frequency of this card. But we no longer question who we are. And if others question who we are, we just smile and we know. And we find this beautiful nest in the 9 of Pentacles. For all our beautiful things, all our memories, all our accomplishments, we kind of feel protective of those things. They aren't trophies on a shelf. And you can also look at this as if it's a heart, in a way. And so from Sun, we go to Venus. And so here, I was thinking this looks like treasures in the heart. And you could compare this to the 5 of Pentacles. There's something here. So if you look at this pearl necklace up here, it's like an adornment, an accessory. But there's something about all these pentacles now. They are in the heart. We've learned, we feel them. They're a part of who we are. And so interesting that all of this red energy on the outside. Is that confrontation? Is that something wanting to change us? Is that self-criticism? What is all this red energy on the outside? Is that you confronting yourself? You know, in a way, this makes me think about English courses and, you know, what is the conflict? Is it man versus man versus himself? But I think this red arises here because it's challenging this comfort. All of this blackness, this darkness here is beautiful, peaceful, divine, feminine energy. It's fulfillment. It's a 9. It's also the darkness of the moon, right? Ninth Sephra, Yesod, goddess. And so, of course, we have to have fire on the outside. We have to have fire on the outside because otherwise we'll become consumed with we'll become imbalanced. And if you look at the transition from this card to this card, from 9 to 10, it's like they're an inversion. So here we took a moment to be. We took a moment to be with this amazing person that we are, this amazing life that we've had. And then it's like in the 10, we know that it's all going to move. It's all changing. And it will, the energy, energy is only transformed. But there is something major that is changing in the 10 of Pentacles. This is a mutable sign, the Hermit. All 10s are about change. I think that the fulfillment and the honoring happens in the 9, and then the change happens in the 10. And so from Venus, we go to Mercury. Venus, we go to Mercury. So this card gets us thinking about all of that. Now notice how we have 9 pentacles, and then the 10th pentacle is in the center, is in the heart. It's in the center of the red. It's in the center of this red. And I think this red, if we're going to read chakra associations, is going to take us back to something really fundamental. Really fundamental. So notice red here, and then red here. So what was pushing at us on the outside here, if we let this happen, we can allow the medicine of that root chakra issue to begin its transformation. And don't fool yourself. I mean, we may find subtle awakenings through the lower 3 chakras, but those lessons that we have, those patterns that we have, are going to keep coming back again and again. We are humans in I know we are spiritual bodies in a human experience, but we're here in the human experience, living and working and learning through these things again and again and again. And hopefully each time we revisit this lesson, it can become clearer and clearer. And I think there's a promise of that in the way that these colors are drawn here. My favorite, is it favorite? I don't know what it is. The going home. Going home. Let's say we go home to the family home, or there's whatever that is symbolic of for you. And you have become this magnificent version of who you are, or maybe not. Maybe you're ashamed of who you are. Whatever, wherever you're at, you are who you are at this point in your life. And there is an occasion to go home. Maybe it's a family holiday. Maybe it's a funeral. Maybe, I don't know, school class reunion, whatever it is. There's a reason to go home. Well, the goal here, goal is not the right word because that's such a low frequency word. The highest form of this return is to let yourself be who you are. Not to change your voice, change your vocabulary, change your clothing, change your, to lock up all the keys, to present yourself as a completely different person than who you are where you are. And so we know that we have made tremendous leaps in the root chakra when we can move in and out of home, right? The family home, the family place, and be entirely comfortable in who we are. Okay. So, this is something that I spend a lot of time with in Tarot Through the Chakras. And I'm not sure this class here. It's a pre-recorded class now. It's not being taught live. And in this class, I talk about, like the Suit of Pentacles is not just about the root chakra. In the Suit of Pentacles, we can bring in and look at all of the chakras through different lenses. And depending on the question and depending on where you are and what you're up to, while you're coming to a tarot reading, that will change. On any given day, a card could speak to a different chakra. And it really is, it's beautiful to look at the tarot cards through that paradigm. And if you associate the mutable signs with the knights, at least for the first 2 decans, then that helps as well too to understand the journeying, the mutable energy of the mutable signs. And, isn't there there's a tenderness with the way that the turtle moves. I don't know if you've ever seen enormous turtles in the wild. Very interesting creatures. And it was when I started looking at indigenous symbology. I believe there are 13, and I don't know if it is all breeds of turtles and tortoises, but there are 13 squares on the back of a turtle. Forgive me if I'm wrong. symbolic of the 13 lunations in a year. And to me, that also speaks to cycles and journeys and all of those things. So have a look at how this energy is moving. And there's more energy in these cards than when we look at the more static energy early in the suit. Yeah. Okay, well, I wish I could put my face on the screen, but I can't do that today. So I'm going to let you go. And do you know that there is a not related really, Mary Beth, but there is another tarot that I don't have, and it was called Ariadne's Thread. And this is a deck that I would love to have because I think we could work with some of the more challenging issues following that thread through the cards. I don't know why your comment made me think about that. The origin myth of Arachne. Yeah. So thank you. I really appreciate you regulars being here, and your thoughtful comments make all the difference in the world. So I look forward. I'll do at least one more week with this deck. I feel there's a few more things to say, and if there's pieces that you would like me to address, please be sure to come back and leave a comment below. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste.